Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going, and as I like to point out every day, it expands our base. It's July 4th, the celebration of American independence. And this country will celebrate today. Massive fireworks displays where there is no danger of fire, summer holidays, barbecues, all of the fun things that we do on July 4th. But I want to talk about a very serious question about American democracy. We have a choice in the upcoming presidential election between two visions of America. Now remember, on July 4th, 1776, this country was divided. It was divided between loyalists, that is, people who believed that we should stick with Great Britain, and the revolutionaries who said we have to claim American independence. And believe me, this was a struggle. Many Americans who supported the British ended up leaving what became the United States and moving to Canada. There were divisions between families. There were literally a civil war between families over what to do. Even Benjamin Franklin, one of the founders of this great republic, had a son who became a traitor. He supported Britain. So the idea that we as a nation battle each other over ideas is not new. It is very important to understand that this moment that we are in is not unusual. But what makes it so compelling is that we have to think about where we, as individuals, stand. Yesterday, I gave a talk here in San Francisco, and I pointed out that the people who support Donald Trump, I believe, do so with great sincerity. They believe in the vision that Donald Trump paints. And the people who support Joe Biden, or if need be, Kamala Harris, have a vision of America that is absolutely contrary. And the question becomes on this 4th of July, where picnics take place across America and families gather, what will the discussion entail? Well, the first question I think you have to ask is what people will say about Joe Biden. Is he the elderly relative who should have the keys to the car taken away because you no longer trust his judgment? And believe me, families across America understand that analogy clearly. Or are we in need of a restoration of Donald Trump to the White House, where whatever you think of his point of view, he gives clear, decisive, and powerful visions of what the America of Donald Trump would be? Back in 1964, in the presidential election, the slogan was about Barry Goldwater, "In your heart, you know he's right." And of course, there was the counter, "In your gut, you know he's nuts." That was the division in America that existed way back when. But the division in America today is a very different one. It almost is a recreation of what we went through back in 1776. So the question is, where are you? Where do you stand? Where should we stand? What difference can we make in the future of our great republic? And that really is the challenge to all of us. I've received a lot of feedback in response to my podcast on the fact that I think Joe Biden should leave on January 20th. I don't think he should run for re-election. And I listened this morning to a fascinating statement by one of Biden's big supporters. He's led us effectively for 3.5 years. Judge him on his record. And I'm reminded of a friend of mine, one of the most brilliant people I've ever known, a man who I would have trusted to think about almost anything and debate anything, who one day was not himself, and he never recovered. He simply was unable to rationally proceed as he would have before whatever the incident was that caused his inability to articulate it. I am reminded that every day is a different day. That is to say, that we evaluate how we feel, who we are, what's going on, all of those things almost on a daily basis. I am reminded on this 4th of July that my distinguished and beloved colleague, Gene Burns, used to read the Declaration of Independence. He read it each year because he wanted people to remember the meaning of the document. When Gene had his stroke and was unable to articulate, it was a tragic moment. It didn't mean that his intellect wasn't working, but he couldn't get the words out. And so he couldn't be a radio talk show host anymore. That was the tragedy of it. It wasn't that he hadn't been great, but he was no longer up to the task. My feeling, which I say with a deep sense of sadness, is that Joe Biden will not be up to the task for the next 4 years. And for people who oppose Donald Trump, the imperative is that Trump not return to the White House. The question that needs to be posed clearly and directly by Joe Biden to himself is, 4 years ago, when he ran for president, he did so because he felt it was his obligation to stop Donald Trump from sitting in the White House for another 4 years. Mr. President, respectfully, I ask a question. Are you sure that you can lead the battle, which will not just last through this election period, but will last all the way for 4 years? I know it's an iffy question. Maybe you would say to me it isn't even a fair question. But one of the things we have to do in life is recognize our limitations. As brilliant as we may have been, as on target as we may have been, as effective as we may have been, at what point do you say, I recognize my limitations? On this 4th of July, America stands at a crossroad. Which way will we go? And who will lead the battle for the future of our country? That, my friends, is the question that should be asked this July 4th in every town, in every village, in every city, in every community. That is the question. On this day when we celebrate our independence, our vitality, our life, and our future. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. Make sure to follow along and let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand. And of course, you can interact with me as many of you have in the last few days, particularly on Facebook and on LinkedIn. I want to know what you think. And, of course, my deep appreciation to Gogo Zoger, who is the wonderful producer of Around the Political World with John Rothman. See you tomorrow, right here on Around the Political World with John Rothman.